Welcome to The One Show with Matt Baker.
And Alex Jones. Now, tonight we are joined by 1/5 of the biggest boy band in the world, One Direction, who has just launched his solo career.
And joining him, 1/3 of a trio of grumpy old men who like to talk about cars.
Please welcome Niall Horan.
And James Smith.
Welcome to you both.
Evening, both. Nice to have you both with us on this Monday. Starting with slightly sad news that Peter Sallis from Last the Summer Wine passed away. We heard this afternoon. 96 he was. Some people compare you three, don't they?
Yes.
To the guys from Last the Summer Wine.
Yes.
So it was a fantastic link. Claggy, apparently.
That's me.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And are you all right with that, or...?
Well, without wishing to sound sick, it's, you know, all due respect to him, it was the role I would have wanted.
Yes. Oh, well.
So God rest him, yes.
Yeah, and if you were lucky enough to meet Peter, perhaps on location in Holmfirth in West Yorkshire, then do send us a picture. Now, Niall, last night you were at the One Love Manchester concert, and of course you have performed in front of so many audiences all over the world. What did you take away from last night's experience?
You could there was a real sense of unity there that I couldn't believe. And you know what they're like up there, up north anyway. They're just a strong character, full of strong characters. So it was just great to be involved. I was really happy I got the invite. It was an honour to be there. And as I said, a great sense of unity in that city at a terrible time. It was unbelievable to see.
Because it was all very last minute, really.
Yeah, I mean, I got
the invite.
I got the call. Ariana called me, like maybe a couple of days after it happened, and said, I want to do something. If I do a gig, would you get involved? And obviously, no-brainer. And she's a good friend of mine as well, so it was better, you know.
It was a beautiful concert.
And it was great. It was a great night. Everyone stayed around until the end, and it was, it was just. I was so happy I went. It was brilliant.
Well, Michelle was also at the concert, which raised £2.7 million, bringing the total for the Wheel of Manchester Emergency Fund to more than £10 million.
Yeah, and Michelle spent the day with some of the audience members who'd been at the Ariana Grande concert during the attack 2 weeks ago.
Two young girls getting ready for a night out. In just 7 hours' time, 10-year-old Molly and 11-year-old Maddie will be heading to their second ever concert. Their first was at the Manchester Arena just 2 weeks ago.
The first part was really fun. The atmosphere was really great, and everybody had their phones out and taking pictures.
What was it like when the attack happened?
Someone yelled bomb, and then everyone was pushing and shoving and just screaming. And then when we got outside, everyone was really upset and they were crying.
To do their bit to help raise money for the Manchester Emergency Fund, the girls have decided to do a sponsored swim.
Why was it important for you guys to do some fundraising?
I know people's best friends who are in hospital at the moment, and just to let people know that we're there for them.
Now, obviously, you guys are going to Old Trafford tonight. You got your t-shirts, you're all set up, ready to go. How are you feeling about tonight?
Excited, but still a bit nervous after the London ones as well.
Accompanying the girls tonight are their mums, Emma and Helen. They were both at the first concert too.
A few days after the 22nd had happened, I was thinking, do you know, that was their very first concert and that's all they know. Yeah. So then to be offered free tickets to go here, even though we both felt a bit shaky about it, there really wasn't too much of a decision.
They're going to be fine. They're going to see a good time, aren't they?
Yeah.
Obviously, Saturday evening there was the attack in London.
Yeah, it just brought back memories, didn't it?
Yeah, I think it's that thing of teaching our children that yes, the world is a bit of a scary place, and unfortunately we can't always protect them from everything we want to protect them. What happened was every parent's worst nightmare. But then you can't minimise life, you can only try and minimise the risks, and so they need to know that we can't sort of stand and cower in our houses, we have to get up and get on, really.
It's 2 hours until the concert starts, and there's a positive atmosphere amongst the crowd waiting outside. I'm keen to catch up with father and daughter Jamie and Poppy. Last Friday, they told the One Show they felt compelled to come back to see Ariana again tonight. How do they feel now they're here?
In light of what happened last night in London, another attack, how do you feel? Have your opinions changed at all?
Absolutely not. Probably even more determined to be here, if I'm being honest. Obviously, senses are now heightened, a little bit apprehensive, probably more than we already were. but it's a tribute to those who've lost their lives or have been injured, and we owe it to them to go and have a good time and also show terrorism they're not going to win.
What does it mean to you, Poppy, to be here today?
I just want to show my support and just have fun.
For many of the 14,000 here who were at the original concert, emotions are running high.
I was waiting outside on the steps for her. Fortunately, obviously, we're okay, but one of our other friends got injured quite bad.
Yeah, they're all right though. But you're still here tonight. What's made you come?
Tough, we have to be tough. We can't let them beat us, and little Ollie. I'm sorry.
Dad, don't cry. Don't cry.
It's incredibly
It's very important that we're here, very. And the artists as well, I mean, we've just got to carry on.
And as the anticipation builds, that's certainly a view shared by everyone here tonight, including Maddie and Molly.
Excited, aren't we? We're all good to go.
Behind me, almost 50,000 people are joining Ariana Grande in her vow not to let hate win.
And after a moment of reflection, it's time to let the music do the talking. The music is loud, but more importantly, the voices of the crowd are even louder. They're here to support the victims of the Manchester and the London attacks and deliver a message of resilience to the rest of the world.
I mean, all the artists were brilliant, Niall, but Ariana handled herself with such poise, didn't she? Because it was a very difficult concert for her, especially. I mean, was she pleased with it? Did you ask her afterwards?
Yeah, I just kind of sent her a message on the way home, just thanking her for inviting me, first of all, putting on the show in, what was probably, 7 or 8 days she put it all together, calling everyone, getting it all, licensed and stuff like that. She was, from day one, she was just unbelievable, and she deserves all the credit there. She was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll move on to your music now, because you performed Slow Hands there, which is part of this new debut album that you've got going. And this vibe, that it's very kind of folk with old rock, kind of Eagles, Fleetwood Mac kind of style. Is that what you were always, set out to do?
Yeah, I was brought up with two parents that were born in the 60s. So, I was brought up with all that kind of Eagles, Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
And, look at James's face.
I was going to say you're too young, but it was your mum and dad.
Yeah, there we go. They have all the credit. I just thought, if I was, I always knew that if I was to make an album, I would, make it on what I grew up on, and I've tried to kind of make a good blend of everything, really.
And there's no date for the release, but we need a date.
Yeah, I'm doing loads of promo all over the place for the next couple of months, so I'm going to be, flat out doing that. So when I get back from that, then I'm hoping somewhere in October, November.
Oh, somewhere. Okay, good. Yeah. So before Christmas.
Yeah.
We can say before Christmas.
Yeah,
Give yourself a deadline. It's always good.
It's finished, but I'll let you know. I'll text you first when it's coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you choose all the songs that you're going to put on there? Because you've written.
Yeah.
I was reading them, 60 or 70 or something.
Yeah, probably. I'd say about 50 songs I've written, and then you go through phases of writing terrible stuff too. Yeah. You could go through, a month of just writing crap, and then, and so I'll whittle it down nice and slowly, and here we are. Yeah.
Yeah. And you recorded This Town with Frank Sinatra's microphone, didn't you?
I was
massive fan of his.
Yeah, there it is, isn't it? I spent the day at Capitol Records, and I'm signed with them, so we got to use their studio, and that's apparently it was Frank's actual microphone, which was quite cool.
Oh, that's quite a moment, isn't it?
I'm a huge Rat Pack Sinatra fan, so it was cool.
Do you try and take it with you?
No.
Good answer.
And James, I mean, you could have ended up with a career in music. In fact, that's what you went to university to study, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did study music, but it was mainly classical. I didn't really think I would have a career in it. I didn't think I was good enough. I did it because at the time it's what I could do.
Right.
I have played Marvin Gaye's piano, though.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, where's that?
Because it's at Hitsville.
Oh, yeah, okay, right.
I mean, it's sort of in a corner, and they said you can have a little go, so I played it for about 5 minutes. That's good. The floor's all worn away underneath it, where people tapped their feet as they played. It's tremendous.
Really cool. And it's kind of a funny moment for you because all you boys are releasing around the same time. When we had Harry on 2 weeks ago or something like that. I mean, is that tough? Is there a lot of rivalry? Or I guess you're supportive of each other, but it's quite hard for the fans to know which way to go, I suppose.
You can have all of us at the same time. It's great. I think it's brilliant. No, we didn't overthink anything in terms of release and stuff. And
do you try and plan it so that one releases and that
we'll obviously try and get stay away from each other in some respect. But yeah, we don't overthink it, and we're all like in touch and congratulating each other and stuff like that. And
do you have a favourite song from the other lads?
Well, I suppose me and Harry would have the closest taste of music together.
Right.
So we would have listened to a lot of the same stuff. So yeah, I could see Harry probably the closest.
His new stuff is really good, isn't it? His new album is brilliant. James May, favourite 1D song?
Ooh. But your first hit, what the one where you're all poncing around on the beach? That's what makes you. I like that. I like that because it was. I remember watching the video and thinking that was me once, obviously a very long time ago, without the singing and the music, but
and the cameras.
But
before you became Last of the Summer Wine.
Yeah, before you became old and last. But we did ponce around on the beach, throwing stones and things, and bouncing around, and
there you go.
Quite nostalgic.
Tremendous. Well, we're going to be sticking with music now because we believe that we may have found one of the earliest pictures of Niall playing the guitar. Look at this.
Very sweet.
That's a beauty, isn't it? Oh, God, was that a Christmas present?
I'm sure it was. What am I there? 3, probably? I don't know.
It's lovely, isn't it?
I was destined for it, wasn't I?
Absolutely.
Well, James, meanwhile, doesn't just like to play guitars, he also likes to take them apart and put them back together again.
Yeah, I can't actually play them.
I've just finished reassembling the 1984 affordable Japanese copy of the classic electric guitar, which has taken me 6 hours and 11 minutes. I have built Lucifer's lute up from its 147 individual parts carefully and lovingly. Now it is time to wake up the rock gods and see if this bad boy works.
Love it. Sounding good on there. It's like an old school Harry Styles there, James. It looks like you've actually taken one of Niall's guitars apart, to be fair.
That wasn't actually me playing it, though, you know that, don't
That wasn't you playing?
No, it was just a joke. I can't play the guitar.
What a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, we all went to it.
For the whole country
but you do see at the end, if you keep watching, there's a bloke standing behind me and he's put his arms under my arm.
Well, fair enough, then.
I can only play the piano.
Really? Well, I know, our coffee table has somehow collapsed during that little clip there, and we've got a new one for you to rebuild.
You can help.
Apparently you're the one that can assemble stuff,
You've seen me play the guitar.
To be honest, I used to have this coffee table, right? I mean, it was the cheapest one in the shop, to be fair. But it's very simple.
You should have... Yes, it looks quite... I mean, oh, God, I'm not sure. What do we think?
Well, this is all to do with Jim's BBC4 series called The Reassembler, and all these kind of items have been reassembled into this latest book, James.
Actual instructions, or am I going to make an idiot of myself?
Now, Alex struggles with the concept of reassembling, don't you?
A little bit. I mean, the pictures in the book are pretty amazing. I mean, look how into this is. I mean, he's not listening because he's so into building the coffee table.
Hey, we're busy here.
But James, the book has got these amazing pictures of these items that you've completely taken apart and you've laid all the components out.
Well, I don't take them
back
apart.
Together.
They're taken apart by someone else, otherwise I'd know what to do.
Yeah, but you put them back together.
Yeah.
So what's the idea behind it then?
I don't know. The idea is it's a way of learning about the history of technology. It's a way of warning yourself from history that the past wasn't quite as nice as we thought. A lot of things in the past were actually quite terrible, like that old telephone. But it's also a form of therapy, I think. And the book it's not a how-to manual, it's not an instruction book, it's a book of philosophy that will sit on library shelves next to Roland Barthes and René Descartes. Or maybe in the little thing that says 2 for 50p, I don't know.
We saw a lovely picture, obviously, of Niall playing his guitar there when he was young. When was the first time that you found this love of reassembling?
Well, it starts... I can't do this until...
No, you can just leave it and sit back down. No, of course, that's fine. Go on. When did it all start?
You were obviously expecting Jeremy Clarkson on the show, weren't you? Yeah. You don't need that. It started probably when I mean, one of my earliest memories as a very small child was trying to take an alarm clock apart that my parents had, and this was the 60s, because I'm the same age as your parents, probably, but their alarm clock was a proper clockwork one that sort of went clonk, 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 and I knew something was happening inside. This is all in the book.
Yeah, yeah.
And I knew I'd learned what a screwdriver was, because there was one in the kitchen drawer, and I'd sort of thought, well, if I take those out, I will see what mystery is inside this clock. But, of course, it's a wound-up alarm clock, so you take the screw out and it explodes.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that back together, but maybe that was a moment that made me think, at some point in my life, I do have to complete this process, which started as a child, and, you know, there was no closure.
Yeah.
Or I could just be really dull and like putting things together. I don't know.
Bit of both.
But you've got an obsession with tools as well, which you can't get into now because we've got to move on a bit. But, I mean, we loved that conversation. We were going to ask you about all sorts of screwdrivers.
The misuse of a screwdriver, I mean, this
Go
is the
on,
thing.
because we like it for paint opening, but
yeah,
you're
wrong.
like, no.
No, wrong. They're for doing up and undoing screws. And that's it.
And stick to that.
That's it.
Well,
or a mains tester, but that's usually accidental.
Are we all right to talk about the second series of Grand Tour?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, how is this going to look in comparison to the last series? Because you're putting a lot of your own money into this, so are you spending more on the second series than you did on the first?
As little as possible. No, it's about the same, I would think. It is quite an expensive show to make. There's a lot of travel involved. There's a lot of crew involved. There's very high tech involved. We film in 4K and so on, so just the actual stories, you know, that's boring stuff. But it's going to look, yes, largely the same, but we've moved it on a bit in a way that I can't tell you about yet because you're the enemy and it's secret.
And when can we see it then?
October.
October.
October is when you will first be able to see it, but after that you'll be able to see it whenever you want, of course.
Right.
I'm told to say that.
Nice.
Because it's on demand.
Well, someone else we know who loves a construction project is Marty Dobson.
Yes, and the one that he's been following is slightly bigger than a flat-pack coffee table.
But you're not finished
Very
it,
disappointing,
James.
For 4 years, The One Show has been following the construction of the new Queensferry crossing outside Edinburgh, the largest engineering project in Scotland for a generation. The engineers have had to overcome huge challenges. Back in 2013, they held back the waves to build the foundations on the sea floor.
This is amazing! I love it!
Then a year later, they constructed the bridge's nearly 2-mile-long span. And finally, last year, they erected the cables to support the highest bridge in the UK.
But the engineers have one final adversary to overcome.
And traffic chaos again as the Forth Road Bridge is closed.
A lorry has blown over in strong winds on the northbound carriageway and has hit the central reservation.
The existing Forth Road Bridge has been plagued by disruption due to high winds throughout its 50-year history. Transport Scotland are determined the new bridge won't suffer the same fate. The engineers have been issued with a challenge. A high-sided vehicle like a double-decker bus or a lorry has to be able to travel across the bridge at 60 miles an hour in a gale-force wind. The man charged with finding a way to keep the bridge open, even in wild winds, is engineer Mike Glover.
If you can get to the bridge, whatever the weather conditions, you'll be able to cross it.
That's quite a promise. So how is science going to help him achieve it? The key weapon against the weather that Mike and his team have at their disposal is a wind barrier. But the design of the barrier is all important. What I've got here is my bridge section, and I've installed onto it a solid wind barrier here, which is going to rather spoil the view of anybody driving across the bridge, but, you know, safety first. What I need now is some wind. At first, it looks like my lorry is protected by the solid barrier, but as I increase the speed, a serious problem arises. A solid barrier like this acts like a giant sail, capturing the wind. The real bridge is nearly 2 miles long. If you had a barrier like this along the entire length, in high winds, it would rip the bridge apart. So these days, bridge engineers use wind barriers with holes in, which have a surprising effect. You'd think that if you have large gaps in your barrier, the wind will just blow through and hit the traffic. Well, let's see what happens. As the wind picks up, my wind barrier is put to the test, and yet my lorry doesn't blow over. This design of wind barrier works because the slatted structure diffuses the wind. Although some of the wind goes through the barrier, it doesn't trouble my lorry because the slats break the wind up. It turns one giant gale into lots of little breezes. But even slatted wind barriers can't usually keep high-sided vehicles moving at motorway speeds in strong winds. Mike and his team worked on a design that could achieve this for 4 years. First, they used computer modelling to assess the effectiveness of different configurations of slats to disperse the wind. They then tested their most promising designs in one of the largest wind tunnels in the world. The unique design they have finally installed is a 3.5 metre high steel and perspex barrier. The slats are at very specific angles, and the spacing is closer at the top than at the bottom, which means the wind is forced up and over the traffic.
The geometry of a windshield is particular to the location, but there are certain characteristics that I think will be carried through into bridges into the future.
The new wind barrier means that for the first time, buses and lorries should be able to zoom across the Forth at motorway speeds, even in the highest winds.
And thanks to this small yet significant piece of engineering, this sound
The Forth Road Bridge is closed in both directions.
Should be a thing of the past.
Thank you, Marty.
Fascinating. Now, earlier on we asked for pictures of you with Peter Sallis, who we heard passed away today at the age of 96. So we have this one here from Sue in Bristol on set with Peter Sallis in 2002. She says she used to go to Yorkshire to watch them all filming. He always knew his lines. He was a real professional, apparently.
And this has been sent in by Elaine. This is a picture of Alan on set at Holmfirth with Cleggy. Or James May.
That's what
Lovely, thank you very much. Thanks to you, James. The book, The Reassembler, is out now.
But playing us out with his new single, Slow Hands, it's Niall Horan.
Oh, lovely.
We should take this back to my place. That's what she said back to my face. 'Cause I want you back. Yeah, I want you, baby. I've been thinking about it all day. And I hope you feel the same way. Yeah, 'cause I want you back. Yeah, I want you, baby, slow hands, like sweat dripping down our dirty laundry. No chance that I'm leaving here without you on me. I know, yeah, I already know that there ain't no stopping your plans and those slow hands. Slow hands. I just wanna take my time. We could do this, baby, all night. Yeah, 'cause I want you back. Yeah, I want you, baby, slow hands, like sweat dripping down our dirty laundry. No chance that I'm leaving here without you on me. I know. Yeah, I already know that there ain't no stopping your plans and no slow hands. Fingertips putting on a show. Got me now and I can't say no. Wanna be with you all alone. Take me home.
with you beside me, whatever life sends.
We can face it.
His name will be Valentine.
Cursed.